Welcome to Smart Wealth with Joshua.
Your daily stock analysis and catalysts talk. Today, we're pointing the spotlight squarely at Critical Metals Corp.
And just a quick heads up for everyone listening, if you find these deep dives useful, please consider subscribing, liking, and dropping a comment underneath. It really does help us keep the lights on.
So we have to start with the elephant in the room, the volatility. I mean, if you've been watching the chart for Critical Metals Corp recently, it looks less like a stock and more like a heart monitor.
That is putting it mildly. I mean, we're talking about a stock that's seen a surge of over 250% in just the last 6 months.
And it's not a slow, steady climb either.
No, not at all. You see these single trading sessions with intraday moves of 70, sometimes 80%. That's crypto-level volatility in a mining stock. It's wild out there.
It really is. And, usually when you see a mining stock move like that, it's because they struck a vein of gold the size of a bus. But here, the immediate trigger is a bit more complex. It's this potent cocktail of high-grade drilling results mixed with some really intense geopolitical speculation. It stopped being just a story about digging holes in the ground.
Right. The headline appeal here is just massive. This isn't just digging rocks out of the ground in some random location. This is a play on Greenland. It's a play on rare earth elements. And frankly, it's a play on Western supply chain security against China's dominance.
Yeah.
It feels like the market is pricing in a trade war as much as it's pricing in a mine.
Exactly. And that's where this blue sky potential comes in. The asset driving all this frenzy is the Tanbreez project in Greenland.
Right.
And you have to look at the political climate. You hear rumors of U.S. government interests, the so-called Trump trade narratives about Greenland assets. People are looking at this map and thinking, is this the next big strategic stronghold for the West?
Okay, so that's the sizzle. That is the narrative driving the Twitter threads and the Reddit posts. But let's pivot to the stake.
Yeah.
The hard catalysts. The actual assets.
Yeah.
Because underneath all that speculation, they do own something pretty tangible. Let's break down the crown jewel, the Tanbreez project. Why is this specific patch of dirt in Greenland so special?
Tanbreez is a beast. It is, well, arguably one of the world's largest rare earth deposits. But in mining, size isn't everything.
Right, grade matters.
Grade is everything. You can have a mountain of ore, but if the grade is low, you lose money on every truckload. Here, the quality seems to match the size. Recent drilling results came back with total rare earth oxides grading between 0.4 and 0.47%.
Okay, I'm going to pause you there. For the listener who isn't a geologist, because I assume most of us aren't, 0.4% sounds tiny. Why do those numbers matter here?
It's a great question. In the rare earth world, that's actually a very healthy grade for this type of deposit. It means for every ton of rock you process, you're getting a viable amount of product. But the real secret sauce isn't just the total amount, it's the composition.
Yeah.
A significant percentage of that, around 26 to 27%, is what we call heavy rare earths.
Heavy versus light. Break that down for us. Why is heavy the magic word here?
So think of light rare earths like the bread and butter cerium, lanthanum. They're used in things like glass polishing, catalytic converters. They're relatively common and honestly pretty cheap.
Got it.
Heavy rare earths elements like dysprosium and terbium, they're the truffle oil. Incredibly scarce, hard to separate, and they are absolutely essential for high-performance, permanent magnets.
Which are used in what exactly?
Everything that matters right now. Electric vehicle motors, wind turbines, and crucially, defense technology.
Defense.
Oh, yeah. Guidance systems for missiles, fighter jet components, drones. If you want a high-tech military or a green economy, you need heavy rare earths. And right now, China controls almost all of that supply chain.
So finding a non-Chinese source of heavies is essentially the holy grail for Western governments.
Precisely. And the moat here seems pretty wide, too. They hold the only exploitation permit for rare earths in all of Greenland.
Wait, the only permit?
The only exploitation permit specifically for rare earths. So if you're a Western government or a major auto manufacturer and you want ethical, non-Chinese rare earths from that region, you have to go through Critical Metals Corp.
You can't just go next door and stake a claim.
Yeah.
They have it locked down.
They've locked down the geography.
That explains the strategic premium. It's a monopoly on location, but they aren't a one-trick pony, right?
Yeah.
We have to bring up their second major asset, the Wolfsberg lithium project in Austria.
Right, and location is everything here too, but for a different reason. Wolfsberg is smack in the heart of Europe's auto industry. You have all the major German car manufacturers, BMW, Volkswagen, Mercedes, virtually in the backyard.
It's like having a farm right next to the grocery store.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The logistics costs are lower, the geopolitical security is higher, it's in the EU.
And we have some real validation on that, right? It's not just a plan on a napkin.
No, it's commercial. They secured a $15 million prepayment from BMW for future lithium hydroxide.
Okay, let's stop on that for a second. A prepayment. That means BMW gave them cash up front.
Yes, and that is rare. When a conservative German automaker like BMW hands you $15 million before you've delivered a single kilogram of product, that is a massive stamp of approval.
A huge vote of confidence.
It proves commercial viability. It's basically an interest-free loan that says, we believe you can do this and we need it so badly we're paying in advance.
That tells the market the product is real. But there's another partnership that I think is even bigger, at least in terms of the dollar signs. The joint venture with Saudi Arabia.
This is critical. It's a 50-50 joint venture to build a $1.5 billion processing facility.
$1.5 billion with a B. That's a staggering number for a company this size.
It's a massive number. And the significance here goes beyond the money. It de-risks the processing side of the equation. See, mining is hard, but refining rare earths, that's chemical engineering at the highest level. It's incredibly difficult.
And that's the bottleneck, isn't it? A lot of Western mines dig the stuff up, but then they have to ship it to China to get processed.
Exactly right. That is the chokehold China has. This facility in Saudi Arabia changes that. It secures a supply chain that can feed directly into U.S. and European needs, bypassing China entirely.
So you have the heavy rare earths in Greenland, lithium in Austria next to BMW, and the refinery being built in Saudi Arabia. It's a full ecosystem.
It is. It's a vertically integrated plan. But, and there is always a but in these stories.
Here comes the reality check. I can feel it. We have the assets, we have the partners, but what's in the bank account right now?
Yes, and this is where investors need to take a deep breath. The company is essentially pre-revenue. They reported about $560,000 recently, but that's not from selling product.
And the burn rate? I mean, exploring the Arctic isn't cheap.
They burned roughly $51.8 million in net loss recently. That's the nature of the beast in exploration. You spend millions to prove the ground is worth it before you see a single dollar of revenue.
So the path to profitability isn't exactly around the corner.
No, it's years away. They've got a pilot plant in Greenland targeting operations by May 2026. But real commercial production, you aren't looking at that until probably 2028.
So if you are buying this stock today, you are not buying current cash flow. You're buying the future. Which brings us to the soft catalysts. Because clearly, the market doesn't care about the lack of revenue right now.
The driving force is geopolitics. The U.S. and the EU are desperate to decouple from China. China controls roughly 90% of rare earth refining. If they turn off that tap, Western tech and defense sectors grind to a halt.
So Critical Metals Corp is positioning itself as the Western alternative, the insurance policy.
Exactly. And then you throw in the speculation. The rumors of U.S. interest in Greenland, that sends retail sentiment through the roof. It becomes a patriotic trade, a security trade.
But it's not just retail hype, is it? Because when I see a stock up 250% with no revenue, I assume it's a meme stock. Who's actually buying this?
No, it's surprisingly not just retail. Institutional ownership is incredibly high, around 86%. We're seeing major hedge funds like Geode and Millennium adding positions.
Why would a sophisticated hedge fund buy a pre-revenue miner burning $50 million a year?
It's an asymmetric bet. For a huge fund, putting a small stake here is like buying a call option on the entire rare earth sector. If it succeeds, it's a 10x or 20x return. If it fails, the loss is tiny for their overall portfolio.
And speaking of options, the options market itself seems to back that up.
Yeah, we saw call volume hitting 4 times the average recently. That signals some very bullish bets by big players.
But then, and this is where it gets confusing, you look at the analyst coverage, and there's this fascinating disconnect.
It's like two people looking at the same painting and seeing completely different things.
Yeah, explain that, because I see sell ratings, but then I see price targets way higher than where it's trading now. How does that work?
It's a conflict of methodology. Some analysts have sell ratings because they see the financial risk. They see a company burning cash with a current ratio of 0.13.
Let's explain that current ratio, just quickly.
It's a measure of liquidity. A current ratio of 1 means you have enough cash to pay your debts for next year, 0.13. That means for every dollar of debt coming due, they have about 13 cents.
Okay, That screams risk.
It does. So purely by the numbers, a sell rating makes sense. An accountant looks at that and runs.
But the stock keeps going up.
Right, because other analysts have strong buy ratings with targets of 12 or implied targets near $20. They are ignoring the balance sheet for a moment and betting on the strategic value of the asset.
It's the difference between an accountant and a strategist. The accountant says you're broke. The strategist says you own the most valuable land on Earth.
Perfectly put. That is exactly the dynamic.
And on that cash burn, there is some news about funding, right? They're not completely on their own.
That's the big thing. They secured $50 million in PIPE financing.
So that buys them time.
Plus, and this is key, they have access to about $120 million in non-dilutive funding through letters of interest from the EXIM Bank.
The Export-Import Bank of the United States. That's essentially government backing.
It signals that Washington is watching this project and wants it to succeed. It's political insurance as much as financial insurance.
Okay, let's set up the debate for the listener. Is this the next big strategic asset, or is it a money pit? Let's hear the bull case.
The bull case is all about strategic scarcity. You can't just build a new rare earth deposit. You can only mine where the rocks are. And Tanbreez is huge, high grade, and has the heavy rare earths everyone needs.
And the demand side?
Locked in. They have term sheets covering 100% of the Tanbreez concentrate. Every ounce they dig up is theoretically spoken for.
That's impressive. Removes the sales risk.
And it's diversified. They are rare earths, antimony, copper. They're building a critical mineral supermarket for the West.
Okay, that sounds great. I'm almost ready to buy. But I have to play the skeptic. What's the bear case? What keeps the CEO up at night?
Execution risk. Building a mine is hard. Building a mine in the Arctic. Incredibly hard. You're dealing with extreme weather, total darkness, freezing oceans. Logistics are a nightmare.
Just getting the heavy equipment there must be a fortune.
It is, and delays are common. The bear argument is that whatever timeline they give you, you should probably add a year or two.
And the financials we touched on.
Still razor thin. They exist on raised capital. If the market turns and the stock price tanks, raising money gets very hard very fast.
And the timeline. It's a test of patience.
You are waiting until 2026 just for the pilot plant. 2028 for real production. That is a long time to hold a stock that swings 80% in a day.
So, synthesizing all that, what are we really looking at here?
The stock trades on news and government policy right now, not on earnings per share. It is a classic high-risk, high-reward development play. If they pull it off, it's a strategic powerhouse. If they get bogged down, it's a long, cold winter for shareholders.
So for the listener tracking this, what's the next big date on the calendar?
Watch for May 2026. That's the milestone for the pilot plant in Greenland. That is the next proof of concept. If they get that running on time, it validates the whole story.
It really is a fascinating story. It forces us to ask, is Critical Metals Corp a mining company, or is it a geopolitical derivative?
That is the question. As trade tensions rise, the value of the ground they own might matter more than how fast they can dig it up. We're entering an era of resource nationalism, and this company is right on the front lines.
A lot to think about. Whether you're a bull or a bear, it's definitely not boring. Thanks for joining Smart Wealth with Joshua.